My beloved brothers and sisters, fear and anxiety, these are not strangers to the human heart. They visit us in quiet moments, in the spaces between our thoughts, in the nights when the world feels heavy and our souls feel small. And yet, within every wave of fear, within every trembling breath, there is an invitation from Allah, an invitation to return, to realign, and to rediscover who truly holds our hearts. We often think that fear is a sign of weakness, that anxiety means we've failed somehow. But in Islam, these emotions are not evidence of spiritual deficiency. They're reminders of our humanity. Allah tells us that the heart is meant to feel, to tremble, to seek. What matters is not that we experience fear, but where we turn with it. Tonight, I want to take you on a journey. Not a journey away from fear, but through it, toward the one who calms the hearts, toward the divine therapy built into the Quran, the Sunnah, and the very nature of our connection with Allah. Because when fear pushes you to the edge, faith teaches you how to fly. Fear and anxiety are spiritual invitations that guide the heart back to Allah, and when we begin to understand them not as enemies but as signposts, an entirely new relationship with our emotional world begins to unfold. Most people try to silence fear or run away from it, believing that strength lies in hiding their trembling. But the heart was never created to be numb. It was created to feel, to react, to awaken in moments of discomfort so that it can remember its true anchor. Fear, in its essence, is the soul calling out for something greater than what the world can offer. Anxiety is not always a disorder of the mind. It is often a disconnection of the heart, a moment when the soul forgets the one who authored its story, its breath, its path. When we shift how we see these emotions, everything begins to look different. Instead of asking, why am I anxious? What is wrong with me? We begin asking, what is Allah teaching me through this feeling? Where is He directing my heart to return? Sometimes the heart trembles because it has been leaning too heavily on something that was never designed to support it. We cling to people, to outcomes, to plans, to a future we imagine we must control. And then we wonder why we are crushed by the weight of our own expectations. Fear enters when we fear losing what we hold on to. Anxiety grows when we are terrified that life will not unfold according to our script. But the truth is, our script was never the real script. We are not writers of destiny, only readers of what Allah unfolds. And when the heart tries to take the pen from the one who writes with perfect wisdom, it shivers. This shivering is not punishment. It is mercy. It is the divine reminder that the heart belongs only with the one who fashioned it, that all things we cling to in this world are temporary branches, not roots. The trembling tells us to reroot ourselves in His nearness. Think about the times you felt fear rising in your chest. Think about how your mind raced, how your thoughts spiraled, how your breath grew shallow. In these moments, what the soul truly seeks is safety. But the mistake we often make is searching for that safety in things that are inherently unstable. People's approval, financial security, perfect health, control over uncontrollable circumstances. Allah allows fear to touch the heart precisely so we can see the fragility of what we depend on. Fear exposes what we worship without realizing. Anxiety reveals what we think holds our lives together. And when those attachments shake, we shake with them. Fear then becomes a diagnostic tool. It tells us what has taken too much space in our hearts. It reveals what we depend on more than we depend on Allah. But this revelation is not a humiliation. It is a mercy. It is the doorway back to inner freedom. When the heart redirects itself toward the one who is unshakable, fear begins to lose its voice. Anxiety begins to lose its grip. Not because life becomes easy, but because the heart no longer feels alone in carrying its burdens. When you stand before Allah, vulnerable and exposed in your neediness, you are accepted fully, in your trembling, in your fears, in the weakness you tried so hard to hide. Allah does not ask you to be fearless. He only asks you to return. Sometimes that return begins with a single whispered dua in the darkness, the kind of prayer that comes from a heart too tired to pretend. The heart says, I can't carry this anymore. And Allah responds, then let me. Fear and anxiety become sacred when they lead you to that moment of surrender. There are times when anxiety hits without warning, no clear reason, no logical cause, just a wave that seems to sweep through the chest. The world becomes loud, the future feels uncertain, and you feel small in the vastness of your own thoughts. In those moments, remember that Allah knows the storm inside you even when you cannot explain it to anyone else. He knows the thoughts you fight, the fears you hide behind your smile, the nights you lie awake trying to quiet the restlessness in your heart. And when He knows, He doesn't just observe, He responds. He brings you closer through the discomfort. He shields you through the uncertainty. He wraps your heart in a subtle kind of care that is often felt before it is recognized. Fear, in these quiet moments, is a call to pause. Anxiety is a call to breathe. Both are calls to remember that you do not walk alone and you never have. Many people misunderstand spiritual resilience. They assume that a strong believer is someone who never feels afraid, never struggles, never stumbles. But spiritual strength is not the absence of fear. It is the ability to carry fear into the presence of Allah without shame. It is the courage to show up trembling, to raise your hands even when your voice shakes, to seek refuge not because you are weak, but because you know that strength does not come from within, it comes from Him. The prophets themselves felt fear. The prophets felt sadness. The prophets experienced anxiety, and yet their hearts were the most connected to Allah. So why do we expect ourselves to be emotionless when even the most beloved to Allah were human enough to feel deeply? Fear, like pain, is a messenger. It tells you where the heart is wounded, where healing is needed, where surrender has not yet reached. When fear rises, instead of suppressing it, listen to it. Ask what it is pointing you toward. Perhaps it is pointing you toward dua you have neglected, or remembrance you have delayed, or trust you have withheld. Perhaps it is pointing toward a place in your heart where the light of faith has dimmed under worry. Fear often comes when the heart imagines tomorrow without Allah in it. Anxiety often comes when we imagine ourselves carrying burdens alone, but neither scenario is true. Allah is already in tomorrow. Allah is already carrying the parts of your life you fear the most. Anxiety melts when we remember that the future belongs to the one who is already there, preparing it with wisdom you cannot yet see. Sometimes fear is not about a specific outcome, but about a deeper longing for control. We want life to unfold exactly as we planned. We want certainty. We want guarantees. But the world was never designed to offer guarantees. This world is a place of instability so that the heart seeks the one who is stable. It is a place of unpredictability so that the heart leans on the one who is constant. If the world were perfectly secure, who would remember the one who secures us? If life were predictable, who would call upon the one who knows the unseen? Fear strips away illusions. It reveals that control was never ours to begin with. Anxiety humbles the heart and teaches it what surrender truly means. And when the heart surrenders, not just with words, but with trust, fear becomes softer, anxiety becomes lighter, the soul becomes anchored even when circumstances are not. There will be seasons in your life when fear is intense, when anxiety becomes a frequent companion. These seasons are not signs of divine abandonment, they are signs of divine attention. Just as storms uproot weak trees but strengthen deep roots, emotional storms deepen the roots of the believer's faith. Every time fear shakes you but you still turn to Allah, your roots grow deeper. Every time anxiety overwhelms you but you still make that dua, your roots grow deeper. Every time you feel lost but you choose remembrance over despair, your roots grow deeper. Emotional struggle is not spiritual failure. It is spiritual training. It is the refinement of the heart. It is Allah preparing you for a version of yourself you cannot yet see. Fear and anxiety are often tied to the stories we tell ourselves. We imagine worst-case scenarios. We imagine ourselves breaking under pressure. We imagine outcomes that have not happened and may never happen. But the heart that rests in Allah learns to rewrite the story. Instead of asking, what if everything goes wrong? It learns to ask, what if everything goes right in a way I did not expect? Instead of imagining abandonment, it imagines divine companionship. Instead of imagining loss, it imagines growth. The heart that trusts Allah does not deny fear, it reframes it. It tells a new story in which Allah is always near, always guiding, always protecting, always writing something meaningful, even in the chapters that feel dark. When the heart feels overwhelmed, remember that Allah never burdens a soul beyond what it can bear. You were chosen to experience this moment because within you is the capacity to rise through it. Fear does not mean you are incapable. Anxiety does not mean you are broken. These emotions mean you are alive, human, sensitive, and spiritually in need of the one who designed you this way. The heart that feels deeply is a heart that can know Allah deeply. The sensitivity that makes you anxious is the same sensitivity that makes you compassionate, aware, reflective, and spiritual. Your emotional depth is not a flaw, it is a doorway to divine closeness. Many of the most spiritually awakened hearts were those who felt the world intensely, who cried often, who feared deeply, who loved deeply, and who surrendered deeply. There are moments when fear becomes a whisper that says, "You are not enough." Anxiety becomes a voice that says, "You will fail." But these whispers are not truth. They are shadows passing through the mind. They come and go, but Allah remains. He remains as the steady light guiding you through inner darkness. He remains as the comfort that fills you when no one else understands. He remains as the one who knows every thought before it forms, every tear before it falls, every fear before you can name it. When you remember this, fear becomes less threatening. Anxiety becomes less consuming because the heart realizes that Allah is not only aware of your struggle, He is actively guiding you through it. And so fear becomes an invitation. Anxiety becomes an invitation to pause, to breathe, to bow, to return. These emotions soften the heart, make it more receptive, more humble, more aware of its dependence. They remind the soul that it was never meant to walk through the world with a hardened shell. You were meant to feel. You were meant to seek refuge. You were meant to turn back to Allah again and again, not when you are perfect, but precisely when you are overwhelmed. Fear and anxiety become pathways, bringing you closer to the one who heals not by removing challenges, but by strengthening the heart that faces them. Surrendering to divine decree transforms fear into trust, and this transformation is not sudden or dramatic. It is slow, intimate, and deeply personal. It begins in the quietest corners of the heart, in the moments when life does not unfold as we hoped, when the weight of uncertainty presses against our chest, and when the future feels like a place filled with shadows rather than light. In these moments, the heart is faced with a choice. It can cling desperately to its own plans, tightening its grip on expectations that slip like sand through its fingers, or it can release that grip, letting the heart soften instead of harden, allowing the soul to lean into a truth greater than itself. This release, this surrender, is not defeat, it is relief. It is the moment the heart remembers that the one who wrote your destiny is more merciful to you than you will ever be to yourself. We often misunderstand surrender. We imagine it as passivity, as giving up, as accepting pain without effort. But surrender in Islam is a form of strength. It is the act of aligning your heart with reality, with truth, with divine wisdom that is always working in your favor, even when you cannot see it. Surrender is not a collapse, it is a rising. It is the moment the heart stops fighting a battle it was never meant to fight. It is the moment you stop trying to control every detail of your life and begin trusting the one who already controls everything effortlessly. Fear begins to ease when the heart releases the illusions it held onto. Anxiety begins to quiet when the heart finally stops trying to hold up the world on its own. Divine decree is not meant to frighten us, it is meant to free us. Every event that unfolds in your life is written with a precision that accounts for every detail, every emotion, every weakness, and every strength you possess. Nothing is random. Nothing is out of place. Nothing escapes the knowledge of the one who sees the path long before you ever walk it. When the heart internalizes this, fear begins to shift. Instead of seeing the unknown as a threat, you begin to see it as a space already filled with divine care. Instead of seeing unexpected events as disasters, you begin to see them as chapters in a story written intentionally and lovingly. This shift is one of the greatest gifts of faith, for it frees the heart from exhausting itself with what it cannot control. There are moments in life when surrender becomes the only path forward. You try to change a situation, but your efforts bring no results. You try to plan your future, but nothing goes according to schedule. You try to hold on to something you love, but it slips away regardless of how tightly you grasp it. These moments are not punishments. They are invitations. They are moments in which Allah gently turns your heart away from what harms you and toward what heals you. But because the heart often confuses attachment with safety, we resist, we fight, we fear, we imagine that if we let go, we will fall. But in reality, letting go is the only way the heart can learn to fly. Divine decree is not a barrier. It is the wind beneath the wings of the soul. Surrender is the heart's recognition that Allah is not only the creator of your destiny, but the companion in every moment of it. He does not decree and then abandon. He decrees and then accompanies. He decrees and then supports. He decrees and then comforts. When the heart internalizes this companionship, the unknown no longer feels like a void. It feels like a journey guided by a loving hand. And when the heart feels guided, fear loses its sharpness. Anxiety loses its sting. The heart becomes calmer, not because life becomes easier, but because trust becomes deeper. So much of our fear comes from believing that we must navigate life alone. We worry about provision, about relationships, about future obstacles, about failures that have not yet occurred. We imagine scenarios that terrify us and plan endlessly to avoid them. But surrender invites us to consider something different. What if you stopped trying to predict the future and instead trusted the one who already knows it perfectly? What if you stopped exhausting yourself with worries and instead believed that every difficulty carries a gift, every delay carries protection, and every detour carries direction? When you stand on the foundation of divine decree, the ground beneath you becomes steady, even when circumstances are not. Surrender does not mean you stop striving. It means you stop attaching. It means you do your part with sincerity and excellence, but leave the results to Allah. It means you plant the seed, water it, care for it, and then trust that if it is written to bloom, nothing can prevent its growth. And if it is not written, nothing can force it. This way of living protects the heart from the heaviness of disappointment. When you know that your effort is yours, but the outcome is Allah's, you no longer collapse when things don't go your way. You simply realign, reassess, and redirect your heart back to the one who knows what is best for you, even when you disagree. This trust is not naive. It does not ignore the reality of hardship. It sees hardship but interprets it differently. It sees challenges as spiritual training, not punishment. It sees setbacks as redirections, not failures. It sees delays as preparation, not neglect. When you surrender to divine decree, you stop viewing life through the narrow lens of your desires and begin viewing it through the expansive lens of divine wisdom. This change of vision is what transforms fear. Fear thrives when the heart believes it must carry everything alone. Trust grows when the heart realizes that everything was never meant to be carried alone. Anxiety often arises from the belief that something terrible will happen if you do not maintain tight control. You imagine losing someone you love, losing an opportunity, failing in your responsibilities, falling short of expectations. But surrender invites you to consider another possibility. Maybe the outcome you fear is the very outcome that will bring you closer to Allah. Maybe the loss you dread will free your heart from attachments that weigh it down. Maybe the failure you fear will open a door to something far better. When divine decree is understood through the lens of mercy rather than fear, the heart relaxes. It breathes. It exhales the burdens it carried for years. There are times in life when surrender feels like the only thing left to do. You have tried everything. You have planned, pushed, struggled, and held on. But every door closes, every path ends, every option disappears. In these moments, surrender does not feel peaceful at first. It feels like breaking. It feels like standing at the edge of your limits, unsure of what comes next. But it is precisely in this breaking that the heart becomes open enough to receive what it could not receive before. The heart that never breaks, never expands. The heart that never surrenders, never grows. Divine decree breaks you open only to rebuild you stronger, softer, wiser, and more connected. Even the small details of your life are written with precision. The people you meet, the opportunities you receive, the challenges you face, the timing of events, all of it is part of a tapestry. You can only see one thread at a time. Fear arises when we see only the thread and assume it defines the entire pattern. But surrender reminds you that Allah sees the whole tapestry and every thread has purpose, even when it appears random or painful. When you internalize this truth, your relationship with fear changes. You stop panicking when things go wrong because you know that wrong turns can lead to the right destination. You stop resisting change because you know that change can be a doorway to growth. You stop fearing the future because you know that the future is unfolding under the care of the one who loves you beyond measure. Surrender also deepens gratitude. When the heart accepts that everything comes from Allah, it begins to see blessings in places it once overlooked. The smile of a loved one, the ease of a simple day, the warmth of a sunrise, the comfort of prayer. All of these become reminders that Allah is present in the details. Gratitude becomes easier when you trust that what you have is exactly what you need in this moment, and what you do not have is something that would not benefit you yet. When you live with this perspective, fear begins to dissolve because the heart becomes anchored in the certainty that it is always receiving what is best. The most beautiful part of surrender is that it does not require perfection. It only requires intention. The heart may still feel fear, but it moves forward anyway. The heart may still feel anxious, but it whispers trust anyway. The heart may still feel uncertain, but it chooses reliance anyway. Divine decree does not demand that you be fearless. It invites you to be faithful. And faith is not the absence of fear. It is walking through fear with the belief that Allah is with you every step of the way. Surrendering to divine decree transforms fear into trust because trust is a form of worship. It is the quiet, steady belief that Allah is incapable of writing anything for you that will ultimately harm you. It is the conviction that everything unfolding in your life is designed to bring you closer to Him, whether by ease or hardship, by gifts or losses, by clarity or confusion. This belief softens the heart. It eases the tension in the chest. It brings a kind of serenity that cannot be explained logically, but is felt deeply. When the heart reaches this place of trust, life becomes lighter. Not because circumstances have changed, but because your relationship with them has. You stop fighting reality. You stop wrestling with what you cannot control. You stop carrying burdens that were never yours to carry. Instead, you step into the flow of your destiny with grace, with acceptance, and with a sense of inner calm that makes even the most difficult moments manageable. Fear transforms. Anxiety transforms. And the heart discovers a peace that can only be found in surrender.